Chapter 33. Immigrant Possibilities. After World War II, Italians endeavored to leave Italy due to their poor standard of living and lack of opportunities. Thousands immigrated to Toronto, Canada, where men arrived seeking greater possibilities for their families. Giovanni Colangelo and Carmela Manzara were among the immigrants, and this is their story. Maria had lived at home with her immigrant parents, and to say this was a colossal moment was an understatement because she was moving to Chicago so we could be together, and we weren't married. We parked in front of the red brick house, and budding pink tulips graced a flower bed below the windows as the brown winter lawn turned into a lush springtime green. Gazing intently into the house, I saw parents staring out the window, which landed like a missile in the car's front seat. "They don't look happy," I said.
Oh, I want you to know my father thinks you're using me for sex.
I grinned and asked, "Anything else you want to mention before I explain what is happening here?"
No, not that I can think of.
She joked. Papa greeted me with a firm handshake and was gracious and dignified. Mama stood over a waist-high black wrought iron railing at the top of the stairs, made her hand and finger into a gun muzzle, and pointed at me.
I do not like you. You take my daughter from me.
Clearing my throat, I said, "I love the flowers, and the grass is turning green. I'm terrible. I can't grow anything, but I try. How do you know how to grow and keep things alive?" "We are from the hills of Monteleone in southern Italy. Do you grow fruits and vegetables?" he asked. "I kill the weeds. I'm very good at that," I smiled and said. "That's an important job. The weeds choke everything," Papa said, smiling approvingly at his wife.
I do not like you. You take my daughter from me,
Mama repeated as she put her face in a handkerchief and wiped her eyes. Giovanni Colangelo showed me into the dining room, which was formal. In the center of the room sat a tan table of Queen Anne design, with 6 matching chairs curled down and sitting on a light green carpet. In the corner of the room was a matching cabinet with pull-out drawers at the bottom, and glass doors displaying delicate glasses, vases, and small artistic statues. The table held floral dishes, a plate with a large loaf of bread, and a long, sharp cutting knife. The lunch menu was on the table and included steaming linguine pasta, a red marinara sauce, meatballs, leafy salad, cucumbers, and tomatoes with fresh mozzarella cheese, which warmed up the chilled puzzle of what and why, where, when, and who I was. "Why has it taken us so long for you to come and meet us?" "I wanted to, but Maria wouldn't invite me, and she called me a donkey." Maria couldn't believe what I had said and translated, and her mother smiled.
Really?
Maria asked, laughing. "You come to my house to make a joke?" Papa asked. "No, sir, I did not." "What are your intentions with my daughter? She wants to move to Chicago to be with you?" Papa asked. "I want to marry today, but Maria won't marry me today. She is stubborn and doesn't want to leave your beautiful life. But we are in love. I live in Chicago, and she lives here with you."
Asina.
Mama said, patting Maria's hand softly, and Maria nodded in agreement with Mama. "What's Asina mean?" I asked Maria.
Donkey. Stupida Asina,
Mom said firmly to Maria. I reached over, removed the knife from the bread tray, and set it on the table behind me. "You're a smart boy, eh? Have you been in this situation before?" Papa asked. "No, I have not." "And where will she sleep?" Papa asked. "She will sleep in the guest bedroom,"
I don't believe you.
Mama said.
Mama and Papa, please give him a chance.
Maria asked patiently. My face became strained, and I looked down at the table to gather my thoughts. "I'm sorry, I've never done this before, and I'm very nervous. I will start over." Papa nodded at me, and I said, "I did not come to visit you because I was sure that at some point Maria would not want me, and she is so wonderful, and I couldn't believe that this could be real. And the pasta is so good. What's for dinner?" And Mama put more pasta on my plate. "But our love is real, and my heart is open, and that is all I know. And I will let go into the mystery of love and family. I promise we will marry in January of next year." "Why not move to Toronto?" Chicago is dangerous, and we will worry about her. We don't know you. I understand, but I have a small construction business in Chicago, and I can take care of us there. I promise that we'll be married in January of 1992. Why January? Why not now? And we can celebrate here in Toronto. Details need to be worked out.
Like another family.
Mama asked. No, I haven't another wife or children. Maria is the first woman I have ever loved. The love makes people move from Italy to Toronto after the Great War, to begin new, even though it may not make sense to anyone but them.
I am?
Maria asked, smiling. Yes, you are, I added.
Fine. Then I accept your marriage proposal today.
I thought you already had, I mumbled, grinning. Her father sighed deeply, and I added, I know this is difficult, but what better way to gain your trust than keep my promise?
Papa and Mama, I'm going to Chicago with Jim. It's what I want to do. I must live my life.
Maria's father recognized his daughter's firmness, and after lunch, we went to the yard. Stepping through the door, I saw a deep yard, and along the fence, Papa had built wine gazebos where bare vines were starting to show tiny red grapes. Beyond the grapevines were individual vegetable gardens with walking paths in between. The gardens were raised off the ground and surrounded by small railroad ties and black dirt. The rest of the yard showed trimmed grass and small fruit trees bursting with tiny white flowers. Your yard is amazing. You like it? Do you know what we are growing? He asked. I shook my head no. On the vines, we grow grapes because we like to eat and make wine. We have tomatoes, lettuce, cucumbers, peppers, onions, and herbs in the gardens. And the trees have got the apples, pears, and the peaches. The weather has been changing and tricking the trees into thinking it's a time to grow a fruit. Sometimes it snows in April, affecting the summer's bloom if it gets cold again. The yard is small, but we love our small yard, and it makes us feel like our Italy. I was struggling, but built on the conversation. Giovanni, why did you leave Italy for Toronto? I asked. He laughed and proudly said, For a better life. Was it hard in Italy? I asked. We lived in the hill town of Monteleone, a province of Foggia in Apulia in southern Italy. I'm the oldest of 5 boys, and the Colangelo name is one of Monteleone's longest historical bloodlines. My father taught me and my brothers trades for the Monteleone shops. One of my brothers is a shoemaker, one a barber, one a hairdresser, one a tailor, and I am a carpenter. Carmela's papa and mama owned a farm that grew vegetables and supplied Monteleone and neighboring towns with milk, cheese, meats, and grain. So, you and Carmela were both from Monteleone? I asked. Yes, we went to the same grammar school and met at St. John the Baptist in Monteleone. Carmela and I would see each other on Sundays at Catholic Mass and functions at the church. He flashbacked into his memory. Sundays in Monteleone were a celebration beginning with a morning Mass, followed by afternoon festivities. The evenings centered around dinners that the ladies of Monteleone would prepare in advance and share amongst the parishioners of St. John. As teenagers, Carmela and her sisters would bring the cheese and grain to the food store, and I worked at the furniture store across the street. I knew of the days and times Carmela would be at the grocery store, so I was sure to find a way to be outside on the road to see her. My boss would nod and tease. Say hi to your beloved Carmela. Slowly, as the days of the week passed, we would look forward to seeing each other again at St. John's on Sundays. Giovanni laughed. I'd tell her stories my grandfather told me about life beyond Monteleone. Carmela would make fun and say, You're a carpenter and have never been anywhere but Monteleone. Then World War II came because of the dictator Benito Mussolini. What was he like? I asked. Mussolini was popular, wrote stories for an Italian newspaper, and formed the National Fascist Party. His power grew, and he became Italy's dictator. Did you fight in the war? I asked. I was drafted into the army, trained as an armored tank driver, and fought in North Africa. My tank was blown up, and I was in an underground bunker with another guy. His eyes glanced up at the sky as he spoke. We heard of the planes which signaled the bombs would fall from the sky. The bombs were very close, and we were in the bunker for 2 days. Boom, 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 all around us. Trees fell, and the ground shook. In between the bombs falling, this guy said he was from Toronto, Canada. His name was Luigi, and his father lived near Monteleone. Luigi said his parents left Italy for Toronto in 1920 because of a lack of food and education. Luigi told me stories about Toronto, and he reminded me of my grandfather. Then we heard the planes above, and bombs started again. Boom, a boom, a boom. And all around us, trees fell, and the ground shook. I thought I was going to die in that hole. And then it stopped for about 10 seconds, and Luigi spoke softly through the dark. Millions of people in Toronto need a good carpenter, barber, shoemaker, tailor, and hairdresser. And you should all move to Toronto. He made the joke. Then we started laughing. And the bombs fell again. Boom, boom, boom. Luigi said he would sponsor me. And I promised to tell my brothers that we were going to Toronto if I survived the war. And Carmela? Where was she? I asked. Monteleone had a revolt because sisters from a farm got angry because the police confiscated food they were bringing to the people of Monteleone. The sisters protested, were brought to the mayor, and were locked in a warehouse filled with cheese and other stolen foods. The women were amazed to see that the mayor was hoarding the food they were delivering for fear of Monteleone being invaded by the Allies, and the three sisters set the warehouse on fire and escaped. Hearing of the stolen food, a mob formed, and the police station stormed. Police had trouble controlling the riot and fired guns into the air, and hundreds of citizens were arrested. The revolt was the first in Italy during World War II. When I returned to Monteleone, Carmela was to be married to a landowner's son who owned the farm near them. How did she feel about that? I asked him. Carmela was sad and felt the pressure from her parents to marry the other man. So I persuaded the guy not to marry Carmela. And soon after, we were married at St. John the Baptist. How did you persuade him? I asked. I asked him if he loved Carmela, and he said no. Then I asked him why you would marry a woman you no love. He laughed and wished me well. And here we are. I smiled and said, You are a brave man, Giovanni. Grazie, he said. After the war, I sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, and there was a big storm, and I think I will die again. I arrived in Nova Scotia, and I took a train to Toronto, and Luigi got me a job as a carpenter. I was lucky to be in that bunker, because it changed our lives. I came to Toronto by myself in 1951, Carmela got here in 1954, and Maria was born in 1956. He paused and reflected. You know, Maria had an older sister who died in Monteleone? Yes, I saw a picture. What happened? One day, she got an infection, and no doctors were nearby. We watched her die, and my wife cried all the time. She was our first baby, and we loved her so much. After a few moments, he sighed, and his eyes pierced. So, I tell you our story and life in Italy, and you see our garden. What you do now is no joke. We are not a fearful people, and you don't want me as an enemy. You must tell me something now, or she cannot go with you. So, I ask you now, what is this thing you want to say? Does Maria know what this thing is? We gazed upon his yard, and I said, I imagine it must have been difficult being alone in Toronto while Carmela was in Italy. The United States Immigration Department can be challenging, but I have a daring plan. It's best at this time that everyone is protected. I promise we will be married quickly, and I will return with Maria in early February, and we will celebrate our marriage in Toronto. Today, I ask permission for your daughter's hand in marriage, and I will not violate your life, journey, or ancestors. And how do I keep my wife from crying? He asked. I paused and didn't know what to say. and he answered his question. And then, children. We have no grandchildren. And you are not Italian, but that is okay. It is better to have a clever, qualified man who loves my daughter and asks my permission for her hand than an Italian man who may never come to the door. But remember this. We are tanto intelligentsia. Your children will have much intelligence. I nodded, and then Maria and her mother walked into the yard.
Papa, Mama said I could go with Jim. There's no disagreement between us, and Mama knows I must do this.
He looked around the yard to see if anyone was listening and whispered, The three women in the revolt were Carmela and her sisters, and the Manzara girls can be testy. Don't get Maria angry because you need to sleep with one eye open. And she will not cook for you. Copy that, sir, Mama announced.
Welcome to the family. I've made cannolis.
Grazie. I smiled and nodded. On the way back to the house, I stopped and gazed upon Giovanni and Carmela's yard and felt graced that I was in the presence of their love, struggles, and determination. The thought that Giovanni Colangelo was in a foxhole under attack with Luigi from Toronto, whose family lived nearby Monteleone, Italy, was not a coincidence. And decades later, an intersection of countries and continents occurred. Maria from Toronto, Canada, packed a suitcase for Acapulco, Mexico, while Jimmy Heaney from Chicago simultaneously packed a suitcase for Acapulco. I understood that if these courageous immigrants hadn't dreamt of opportunities and better educations and sailed the ocean to North America, Maria and I would have never met. Meeting in Mexico was fate.